Hi, I'm DJ Ware, and this is the Cyber Gizmo. Today we're going to be looking at Devuan. This is a derivative that is based on Debian 12, and this is Devuan 5.0, codenamed Dataless. So I think that whenever you're looking at a new distribution or one that you're not familiar with, you probably have two questions. What is Devuan Linux? What's it about? Why do we need it? And the second question you might ask is, what are some of the features and why would I care about this? Well, I think we probably should roll back to the very beginning. But before we do that, Devuan 5 was released in August of last year in 2023. Devuan itself has existed since 2014. It was the result of a decision made by Debian to move to systemd. Debian was the last holdout among all the distributions. So we're going to talk about that older mechanism. What was that? Well, Devuan is using an init system called System5 What the heck is an init system? What is that? I mean, maybe you know, maybe you don't. So used to be in the original early days of Linux, this is no longer true, that there was the kernel always called a particular program, and that program was System5 and that became process ID number 1. Guess who's number 0? That's the kernel. So, in case you didn't know that. But the process ID number 1 was the first job the kernel launched. It was responsible for initializing hardware and services and make sure that those services continued to run. So everything that you needed, your networking support, your USB, keyboard, monitor, graphics, all that stuff was managed at the level of the init process. Where did that come from? It came from Unix. That design and architecture was how Unix did things. But there was a problem. At least there was a perceived problem that was echoed by one of the developers at Red Hat who wanted to get out from underneath the System5 init's serialized nature of launching applications. There was a number of problems with System5 init. It was, first of all, it launched everything in a serial fashion, and it had a numbering system that was kind of confusing. It had an S in front of the file name if it was a start, and a K if it was a closeout or a kill. So if we were shutting down, we did the Ks. If it were starting up, we did the Ss. There wasn't any code that I was aware of that controlled that other than convention. So, and then there were run levels. I've done some topics on this before on run levels. I'm not going to cover those again. There are still run levels even in Linux today. The problem was, and the reason for the need for systemd was systemd would do things in parallel, and it would group services of like kind together. And that was something that System5 init just couldn't do. Where did Devuan come up with this name? Where did that come from? It comes from two different parts. The DE is from Debian. The VUA is from the Veteran Unix Admins group. So what was the problem with systemd? What's wrong with it? Why was Debian so slow, dragging their feet? What was wrong with it? I'm sure that you can go back to all the politics about it, but there was just people that felt it was too big. It was trying to do too much. It was not adhering to the Unix philosophy of do one thing and do it well. Or that was just the mantra. That's not the philosophy. The real philosophy is even more important, which systemd violates the hell out of: composability. I mean, if you don't know what composability is, you can think of it this way. It's the ability to throw something away and replace it with something else. Systemd is so entrenched has so many tentacles, so many interdependencies, so many complex interfaces. That task would be monumental. So I'm sure that if you want to read more about the discussion about systemd, you don't need me to tell you this long, long story. So, but anyway, let's go back to Dev1 and talk about it. What does it do? What's it do for me? Well, the first thing it does is it boots very quickly. Oh, wait a minute. Wait a second. You just said Dev1 uses System5 and you said System5 was slow. Yeah, that was true back in 2014. But in 10 years, the package developers who work on System5 haven't been sitting still. They've been making it more efficient. They have been learning from their mistakes and building in efficiency and making it faster. I don't know. I haven't run a race between SystemInit and systemd to see which one will come up the fastest. Devuan offers more than just System5 They also offer openrc and runit. Now, we'll talk more about that when we go into doing the install. I'm not going to cover all the differences here, but we'll talk about those when we're doing it. The other thing about Devuan is that, like Debian, it's one of the few distributions that are still maintaining support for 32-bit x86 platforms, or i386 platforms to be more correct. Also, obviously they also have support for 64-bit x86 platforms as well. There's a pretty strong community support for ARM and PowerPC. By default, Devuan installs XFCE. However, during the install, you can choose from Mate or Cinnamon or KDE, LXDE, LXQT, in addition to XFCE. They also support a window manager, probably a number of them, but one particular that I can think of is Sway, which is a Wayland-based window manager. Devuan offers a rootless StartX, and that uses libseat1 in order to do rootless. Where is Devuan going from here? Well, they've already started work on the next generation called Excalibur. I assume it'll be Devuan 6 when it gets released, but Excalibur already has test repositories that are open that you can use if you wish. That's based on Debian Trixie. Anyway, let's go get started with that, and I'll come back and I'll tell you what my final thoughts are. So now we'll just go ahead and do an install. There we go. So the first thing is you pick your language. Now this is a text-based installer on this particular ISO. And you don't get a choice. So the country is US. It's American English for the keyboard for me. It might be different for you. All right. Yeah, that's right, I think. Now I'm going to create a root password. Now, why would you want to do that? Well, if there is some kind of a problem with your boot sequence, say maybe you have a drive that's mounting through the FS tab, then if that drive fails to boot, then your system will go to a single user mode, which if you don't have a root user enabled, it will then error out. And so there's no way to just go in and fix it. So I'm going to create a root user. Now, that has a ramification that this user that I'm going to create here will not have sudo access. So we'll have to remember to add this person to the sudo group. Okay, I'm in Central Time Zone. I'm just taking default options on the partitioning. Um, Creating one partition, putting all the file systems in it, and then yeah, using the virtual disk that I created during the creation of the virtual machine. That's all I did there. I'm sorry, I should have walked through it, but I'm just so used to just doing it. My automatic part just kicks in and I just do it without even thinking. So it's like second nature. Now you'll notice the kernel version is 6.1, and that will be the same for Dev1 all the way through. So if you need a newer kernel because of the architecture that you have, you might want to watch a video of mine that talks about upgrading a kernel on Debian. The procedure will be similar for Debian. Oh no, I don't want to scan anything else. I'm looking for where my repos will be, and they'll be in the US. It's configuring the apt sources list in your etc directory, which is all the repos that your system uses. Do I want it? No. That is a survey that it basically anonymizes every time you sign on so that they can keep track of all the things that you run. So as you can see, XFCE is my default. Now, if I prefer Mate or Cinnamon or GNOME or KDE, yeah, or even the older version of GNOME, you can install those here. All you do is just unselect that one and then choose whichever one of those you want. Now, I'm just going to go ahead and use XFCE for today because I want to show you how thin and light some things can be. Yeah, it took about 4 minutes, maybe a little bit less. So right now it's asking me about which of the init systems that do I want to use. So you'll notice that SysVInit, which was the original one used by Linux, but don't count on wide support for any of these. It is possible that you may run into packages that have, like I said, deep ties with systemd, and those will fail. And you may run into some of those. I have in the past. So if you aren't sure which one of these to use, go with System5 because that's the one Linux used originally. OpenRC is a great package. It still uses System5 for PID1. So, and it says it's still kind of experimental, requires additional manual configuration. So that's probably not going to be a first choice. Runit is an alternative which provides the Sys5 services, but it also provides services in run level management, similar to what systemd does. So, however, I have never really used Runit before, so I'm going to go with what I know. So right now it's just asking me, where do I want to put Grub? Well, I want to put it on my primary drive. There we go. That's the one I want, the SDA. So at this point, I'm ready to boot into the installation. So let's go ahead and do that. And it should just, yeah, there's the Proxmox display. And we were successful with the install because we got the Grub screen. Now we got to see if it will actually boot. It should. You know, am I going to have to sign in as root? Maybe. Yeah, I am. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and add. I'm going to go ahead, exit out of this terminal, and I'm going to log out. And now I'll try this again. This time we should have sudo privileges. And yes, we do. Okay. So we're all up to date, which is what I kind of like about that's the other advantage of the network install is yes, it does require that you have a internet connection, but it also gets you updated to the latest packages. Now, I'm going to add some more stuff out here. I need htop, I need get, I need glances. Okay, so let's see. So we're using about 498 meg of RAM out of 4 gigs. So yeah, I have quite a bit of room that I can add more stuff to. But and I have 66 tasks running 91 threads, so very lightweight as far as a standard desktop is concerned. We'll put it that way, so we don't offend anybody that's using window managers. So as far as the application caches are concerned, the memory over here, as you can see, is quite different. We have 805 meg, almost double. And those include the file caches and all of the cache memory that the application bases are running. All right. So as far as the stuff that we probably are curious about, XFCE is version 418. It might be a 418. Yeah, it is. It's 418. So that is the current release of it. Let's go look at the rest of the system the kind of things we normally look at. So it's occupying about 5.2 gig out of the total of 32 that I have allocated for the file system. There we go. So we have an overall score of 61. That's a failure. And that's not, don't feel bad, Devuan. That's not uncommon. Most of them, with the exception of a couple, have actually passed this on the first pass. But it's telling me that it needs to have a firewall and some kind of malware scanner. Okay, first thing, I would like to get a source code count for system D. So let's clone it out of the repo. This will take a little bit. All right. And let's go into the directory. I usually like to use SLOC for this, and we'll tell it to do the current directory. Just kind of see what we get. So it looks like 1.154 million lines of code. But that's counting a bunch of files, not just the C code. C is about 609,000 lines of code. So, I mean, it ain't nothing. I mean, there's quite a bit of code in here that makes up System D. Okay, the second thing I would like to know is there any difference on the amount of time it takes to boot up? And I've been thinking about this, how to measure this accurately. And I think dmessage probably is going to give me the most accurate way, since it starts its timer as soon as it starts to boot into the kernel. And then once it reaches a point of stability, it stops publishing the dmessage until there's system log messages that come through it. But we might be able to get a pretty good story here. So let's start with Debian here, and we'll bring up the console for it, and we'll do a start now. I'm not gonna do any timers of my own. I'm hands off, just let it do its thing. I'm not touching it. Okay. So this is Debian 12. It's set up using the same method I used to install Devuan. So it should be about the same, but we'll check it. Let's look at dmessage. Oops, yeah, you do have to be sudo. Okay, so from start to finish, 2.686430 seconds. So that's the Debian startup right there. So let me just copy that into a buffer on my local system. And it's 2.6. Let me get my window out of the way here. 86430. Okay, now let's go do the same thing. Let me shut this down. Okay. Now, granted, this is starting up on a virtual machine, but that's okay. What we're trying to find out is if there's a difference with them. So whether it's on a virtual machine or a physical machine doesn't make any difference. Okay. So let's bring up the console for this, and we'll do a start on this one. Hands off again. Just letting it come up on its own. It's not going to time any of that. Now it starts. This is where dmessage comes in and starts timing. So if there is, different wait times for when it comes up, that's not going to matter. All right, so let's terminal program up, and we'll do a neofetch. I just am curious to see. Yeah, the packages are similar, 1439. That's pretty close. Let me also get this so that it's on screen. There we go. And let's see what we get here. 3.6. Okay. 3.617. 321. I should probably put this as 12. So it looks like about 1 second, a little over a second. Yeah, 1.07-ish seconds difference between the two of them. So what do I think about Devuan? So, I mean, to be honest with you, I don't use this in my daily life, mostly because if I was sticking with a set development or an environment that I strictly control, I probably would use Devuan, but I don't. So yeah, I do a lot of things that require newer packages, newer releases, newer stuff. And so those usually will run head on into problems that you'll have with compatibilities of System 5 init with the current base of systems that are written to integrate with System D. So, yeah, and that is trouble. But like I said, if I had something that was tightly controlled and I had set this up and I was using it all the time, this would be great. All in all, I mean, I think this is a really cool release. Please like this video and share it out with your friends. And I hope to see you all in the next one, and bye for now.